We are being joined tonight by James, who is an ambassador from Movember, and um, James is an experienced and award-winning mental health campaigner fighting for recognition and better treatment for those living with mental ill health, both in business and in the wider society. He's an excellent public speaker and panelist, speaking at multiple corporate and industry events. He himself lives with anxiety and depression for most of his life and is familiar with the difficulties and barriers faced by those with mental ill health. He had an extremely successful corporate career whilst also fighting and overcoming the all too familiar stigma and discrimination. James is a community ambassador for Movember and a Movember Hall of Fame inductee, encouraging men to be more open about their health, especially mental health and suicide prevention. He has undertaken multiple challenges to raise funds for Movember, including running 84 kilometres a week every week in November 2019, raising more than £30,000 in the process. Big congratulations. James has been recognised for his work, being named Most Inspiring Employee of the at the inaugural This Can Happen Awards in 2019 and Movember's Change Agent in 2020. He's also been shortlisted for the Behind the Scenes Champion at 2020 Inside Out Awards. It is a great pleasure to invite you, James, to Midweek Matters this evening. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I couldn't quite get the mute off. Thank you, Miriam. That's a bit of a build-up, actually, and hopefully I can go on just a little bit as well as Leonora did with her talk. And I think the inspiration that's behind so much of what Leonora does is very common to what we do with Movember, and talking about some of those stigmatized subjects, some of those taboo subjects. It is really where there's a huge crossover on that. So hopefully what I'm going to talk about now will help to back up some of what Leonora has discussed earlier. It really is a pleasure for me to come on to this, because I know how important events are like this in getting people to sort of have a voice and have a discussion and talk about subjects that sometimes we wouldn't necessarily talk about. So I'm just going to share my screen, and hopefully everyone can see that. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about Movember and what Movember does. And basically, in the last 21 years, Movember has really shaken up the whole talk about men's health. When it started 21 years ago, no one really talked about men's health at all. That's not men. That's not the medical community. That was nothing. And we've really helped to shake up that research that has gone on behind the scenes, very much more in the physical side rather than the mental side. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next 15 minutes. But Movember since 2003 has funded more than 1,320 projects worldwide. And this is in the areas of UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States, and then parts of Europe. And these projects are very locally based. The idea behind it is to be community based, to help people build connections, to help people have a better say in their community. So some of the projects that have been funded are things like Pie Club up in the north, where a group of men will get together. They will make or bake a pie and have conversations about their health. Because what we really want to do is help to rewrite some of those outdated masculinities that still prevail across society nowadays. And it isn't to say that actually being a man doesn't have to, it does include being masculine. It does include having some of those masculine qualities that seem to be taboo to talk about now. But it also means we want to help men realize that that's not all that we need to depend on, and that not everybody has all of those type of qualities in abundance. And actually, there are people more like me who tend to show a much more caring, kinder, softer side that is still in there in a masculinity context. And we're helping to rewrite some of those concepts and some of those views that men have of themselves. And some of those views that men have that lead them into difficulties, be those difficulties in the behavior that they exhibit, or be those difficulties in the way they don't look after either their physical or mental health, and end up either losing their lives or have suffering really serious ill health. So, how did Movember start? Well, 21 years ago, there were a group of people, Aussies, sitting in a pub, surprise, surprise. And they thought, well, we haven't seen a moustache in ages and didn't think it. They were just chatting and, they hadn't seen a moustache. It was definitely out of fashion. And so for that first year, they had a bit of a mates challenge with each other and said, "Tell you what, let's try and bring back the moustache." So they got 30 of their mates together and they all grew a moustache in the month of November. November was one of the founder's birthdays. He has a birthday at the end of November, and they were like, "Well, we're all growing moustache right to the end of November, and then we'll all have a bit of a party, shave them off." Doing this, what they found is it really did help to start some conversations. And those conversations were usually around the bloody hell, mate, what are you doing growing that thing? But it got people to talk. And one of the founders is a very good marketing executive. And he realized actually that they had something. And from that time, it grew. And the moustache made a comeback. And now, 2 decades later, with conversations having been started, money in excess of 1 billion Australian dollars, which I guess in English pounds is about £2, but it's actually quite a bit of money. But it's grown into a movement that hasn't just raised money, hasn't just funded projects, hasn't just funded research into the three main cause areas, but it's helped men to have conversations they wouldn't necessarily have had. And it's helped women to have conversations with their men because we understand actually that women play such a key role in keeping men alive longer. It might shock you to know that a boy born today in the UK is expected to live more than 4 years less than a girl born on the same day in the UK. And that's higher than every other G20 country. And it's something that in the UK we need to tackle. That's 2 years more than a boy born in Australia compared to a girl born in Australia. So in the UK, we've got a big gap that we need to try and close. And most of that is by getting men to talk about their health and to do something about their health. So what Movember are now looking to do, they've had their first 20 years. We're now into the 21st years and changed slightly the way that we want to go about things. And we've got 5 key goals now for the next 5 years. Firstly is lifting the profile of men's health. That's really getting this onto the agenda. This is getting men to take their health seriously. And alongside goal 2 is strengthen men's health literacy. We need men to understand what they need to look out for. I talked about the gap in between a baby boy and a baby girl born today, and that's for no physiological reason. There's no biological reason why that should happen. But it's partly because men don't understand what they need to do to stay healthy. We get a test sent out when we're 50. I think it's 52 now, sent out by the NHS to say, guys, come and have your health checked. It's just a standard blood pressure, some bloods, urine tests. More than 65% of men don't take up that test. And those are the tests that help to stop heart attacks. Those are the tests that help to do to check on any early intervention the NHS might be able to do. Men don't understand what the risks are for the 3 cause areas. So for prostate cancer, for example, it's the biggest biggest killing cancer now in the UK. And yet men don't understand what we need to do, what we need to look out for. If you ask most men nowadays what the test is for prostate cancer, they'll tell you it's this little finger going up to one of those places that we shouldn't mention. Leonora spoke about vaginal dryness. Well, talking about a finger up your rear passage to have your prostate checked is another very taboo subject. Us guys don't want to go there. Well, guess what? We don't need to. The test for prostate cancer is a blood test. And only if that blood test comes back with some questionable results do we then need to go for an internal examination. And that's when the doctor will use the finger to explore your prostate further, because the prostate is located but next to the bladder, but accessible only through the back passage. What we also want to do is promote gender responsive healthcare for men. More than 50% of men who take their own lives are already in mental health treatments. And it's obviously not working for us. Guys like to talk shoulder to shoulder. We're not very good at this face to face. We're not very good in the way that therapy is set up for us. So if we can get guys talking shoulder to shoulder, be that making pies, be that going on a drive with each other, going for a walk, doing something where men feel comfortable, it's going to have much better results. And some of the projects that Movember fund are in that way. In Australia, there's now I forgot the name of the project, but it's educating therapists about how men better respond to therapy and how getting them in different types of setups, as opposed to the traditional face-to-face setup that is currently going, is going to have better results. The last two are really important in here as well. And part of those go to education as well. And Leonora talked about the importance of education, and that's so true with all that we're talking about. I'm going to look at goal 5, the improving prostate cancer mortality and quality of life. If you get a guy and you tell him he has got prostate cancer, the most natural response for a man to say is, get it out. Don't want it in me, get it out. And that is a really radical surgery that once the surgery has been completed, it's a robotic surgery and has a very, very good success rate. But then guys are left with some real issues such as erectile dysfunction, no bladder control, hormone imbalances, and really symptoms after the surgery that are really difficult to live with. And nobody really talks about that. Nobody really gets any support for that either. There is no support on there. So we're looking to provide better support for people who have gone through that robotic surgery and had their prostate removed. But what we're also looking to do is to improve the decision making in the start, because actually a lot of the time with prostate cancer, it can be slow growing and you don't need to do anything. You don't even really need the radiotherapy or chemotherapy. It can just be monitored. And this is what we're trying to get across to men as well, is the educational piece of, let's not just say get it out. Let's understand what this is about and let's help you improve your life. Whilst 1 in 8 men are or do get prostate cancer, it is much more likely, or much higher number than that, of men who will die with prostate cancer, never having known they've had it. It's an incredibly common disease, but lots of the times guys don't really know about it. The final goal that I'll talk about, goal 4, improving young men's mental health. We're in a real crisis at the moment with mental health as a whole. I think we only need to see some statistics that are out today talking about the waiting times for children. I think it was somewhere in the region of 320 days is the average waiting time for a child to see mental health services. Young men are struggling at the moment, post pandemic especially, but struggling with connections, struggling with understanding what their place is in society, and really struggling with their mental health. And we need to try and help do something about it. We're looking at putting up the opposing view that is currently out there through what I guess is being labeled as the manosphere at the moment. But Toxic influencers like Andrew Tate and the so-called so on, who put out a really poor message for how men and young boys should look at themselves and how they should operate, and a message that causes more difficulties for most young men than it does prove to be successful for them. So a lot of the time we're spending at the moment is doing a lot of research and doing a lot of understanding as to how we can get young men to um, I guess, cooperate, interact with us, using things like esports and gaming to communicate with these young men, because they're spending a lot of their time alone in the bedroom and not doing the types of things that may be crossing some of your minds at the moment, but on their gaming, on sort of just really being alone. We're trying to help understand how we can make or help young men have better connections, a better community feel, and feel more like that their place in society is as valued as it actually is. So talking on the cause areas that we have, and I've only got the one more slide to go. The cause areas that Movember talk about, on average, men die 5 years younger. That takes into account across the globe. So as I said, it's 4 years in the UK. The cause areas are prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and mental health and suicide prevention. I said 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer during their lives, and many, many more men will die with prostate cancer. Testicular cancer is the most common form of cancer amongst young men. And the real positive piece about both prostate cancer and testicular cancer is that if it's caught early, it has a really high survival rate. However, both of them, if caught late, have an incredibly bad survival rate. We really feel that we have, I guess, cracked the research side of it. What Movember did with the prostate cancer side and with testicular cancer side is got experts from all over the world to come together. Previous to the work that we've been able to put in, people used to work in their own silos and not share results because the scientific community can be a little bit I guess, competitive with each other, and they want to keep their results, and they're very proud of that. We've been able to get all the scientists and all of the research together, and I think the scientists and doctors are very confident about the next few steps that go. So really, how we're now looking to influence both of those two cause areas is by that information, is by the education. We have some great campaigns out there. The one that I absolutely love is the testicular cancer campaign called Know Thy Nuts. It just encourages young boys and sort of young men as well to have a feel, very much like the copper feel with ladies examining their breasts. It's encouraging guys going, we all see them walking down the street with their hands down their pants, and they're not checking. You know, if they're going to have their hands down the pants, check. And it's important to check every month. With the prostate cancer, it's important guys know the risk factors. So the risk factor for a white Caucasian male is if you're over 50 or if you have any history of prostate cancer in your family, you should be going to your doctor and asking for a PSA test, which is the blood test. However, if you're Afro-Caribbean, then you want to be going earlier. It's 45. And Afro-Caribbean men, their diagnosis rate is 1 in 4. It's a much more prevalent disease, and we need to get this across to the different communities. The final part is something that is incredibly close to my heart with the mental health side. As I said, I've struggled with mental health for more than 25 years now. I have a long-term condition called dysthymia, which is persistent depressive disorder. I spent 6 months in a mental health hospital. I was probably a day away from taking my own life. And since that time, about 15 years ago, I have campaigned tirelessly on this. The statistic here is truly horrible. One man dies by suicide every minute globally. Every minute, one another man will die. The running that I did 83 kilometers because, or it was 84, sorry, 84 kilometers because that's how many men we lose in a month. Sorry, in a week. We lose 13 men a day in the UK to suicide. 3/4 of all suicides are men. And this isn't sort of, we hear some tropes rolled out as, well, that's because men, take a much more violent approach to ending their lives. Um, Guys take their own lives because they feel a burden, and they feel a burden because social stigmatization has said that men need to be able to cope. They need to be able to cope by themselves. They don't ask for help. We don't reach out for help when we need it. And we need to change that, because actually we do need to reach out for help, because the help is there for us. The people that love us and the people that are around us, the doctors and everybody else want us to stay alive. And we need to stop fooling ourselves that we can do everything by ourselves. When we do that, when we start to understand that, we'll start to crack this suicide dilemma, because we need to. We say 6,000, more than 6,000 suicides in the UK, numbers rising, and 3/4 of those are men. We can't afford to do it. It's the biggest killer of men from under the age of 45, between 35 and 45, and it's the biggest killer of young men. We need to change this. We need to understand that as guys, we are not this invincible, know it all, sort of completely, like an island. We're not that. We're people who need to ask for help. We're people who are stronger when we do ask for help. So if I can leave it sort of, hopefully not on too much of a sour note with talking about that, but also just with that of, everybody on here knows somebody. And all I ever challenge people to do is continue to make connections, continue to talk to people, because when we do talk to people and make connections, we build communities. And seeing this community you have here, and every midweek, talking to people, having other people come on, connecting with each other, is so important. And I just think it's wonderful to have this type of community in here, because that's what I talk about the whole time, building communities. And that's it. Thank you.